So it's 11 a.m. and I think we can get started with our next session. If everyone is okay with that, we'll continue with Windows Virtual Desktop and Microsoft Teams, so the perfect remote working solution. My name is Yannick Dils. I'm a cloud solution architect at Aspects and also a MCT, a Microsoft certified trainer. So on the agenda in this session, we'll briefly introduce you to our lineup of today. We'll make sure that you can use Teams on any device and anywhere. And we'll talk about Windows Anywhere, or better said, Windows Virtual Desktop. If you have any questions and answers, feel free to ask them in the chat window. So our lineup of today. We're going to show you a couple of very cool devices on where you can use Teams. First device I'm going to show you, that might be a small mistake because that one doesn't support Microsoft Teams. So any of you know which movie this device was introduced? Feel free to add your comment in the chat window. I'm happy to see the comments. So I'll wait, and at the end of the session, I'll introduce you to which video was introduced in the past. So first off, I'm going to show you a small video of our lineup of today. So you should now be seeing my camera. In the background, just hoping. So our lineup of today is covered with an iPhone, an iPad, a Samsung Galaxy S9, a Galaxy Pro, and my iMac, which has been around since 2008, and still working. So we're not going to show this device. I used to probably have a version of this device in my cupboard, but not anymore. So Teams on any device. So I want to talk to you that we can use Teams on probably every device we have in our house, which has a sort of a smartphone functionality or a laptop or desktop functionality. So to start with, we have our mobile options. So with our mobile options, we're talking about the iOS phones, so the iPhones of this world, starting from an iPhone 5 up until the latest iPhone X series. Now we can start using Teams on this one as well. Same thing with all of the Android versions we have around. Microsoft Teams is supported on that as well. So I want to show you briefly how easy it is to get up and running with Microsoft Teams on such a device. First up, I'm going to show you my iPhone. It's an iPhone 6s Plus, which I have pre-installed my Teams app, as you can see here. I've already logged in to my device. So just launching my Teams app right here. I do need to enter my password, so I'm securely going to enter my password first. So a nice little feature on devices as well is the Microsoft Authenticator app. So if you install the Microsoft Authenticator app, you don't have to enter your password on every application that you launch, which has Microsoft Authentication in the background. So as you can see, this is my Teams app. I have my activity overview here. I have my chats. So I have been chatting with Kai this morning. I have my Teams channels right here, as you can see. So I have my general introduction channel where I can start a new post like, hey, welcome to this session. Great. So my post is now available in my Teams channel. So nice. Okay. Want to go back. I also have my calendar. For now, I don't have any calendars active or any schedules active in my Teams session here. Now I can also make calls. So as you can see, Teams wants to have access to my contacts, and yes, of course, I want them to allow. So immediately I can see a call history of Kai and myself earlier this morning. I can also quickly go to my voicemail. So that's how Teams works on a iOS device. So I'm just gonna close this one and navigate to my Android. So this is a Galaxy S9. As you can see, it's brand new, out of the box, and I've installed my RD Client app and my Teams app. So in Teams, when I launch Teams, I'm already logged in because on this device I did install the Authenticator app, and since I did a post previously on my iPhone, I can see now that, hey, welcome to this session, my post. I can add a new post as well on this device. Hi, so I'm actually starting a conversation with myself. Pretty weird, but that's something you can do with Teams as well. Just have a chat with yourself. So the interface is a little bit different than you saw on the iOS device. So if we click back, go to the Activities tab, I can see that my activities are here as well. So if I want to highlight something to myself, I just enter and add Yannick Tils, or should add and then there should have been an overview in my activity, but it could be that it doesn't support my own ads as well here. So just gonna do this again. Ads. Let's pick sales demo. So I'm just gonna highlight something in my team. If I then go to my activity screen, any other user should see an additional message pop up right here. So I again have my chat right here under my fingertip, the Teams channels, and my schedules as well. So also an overview of my calls. So same user interface as I used to have on my iPhone, a little bit different, but works as well. You can also enable my notifications and have a look at the what's new. So great. This is how easy you can use Teams on any mobile device. So next up, our tablets. So as you can see, I have two tablets right here. So I have my iPad right in front of the screen. So I first need to unlock it. As you can see, I have a lot of Microsoft apps pre-installed already. So if I launch my Teams client on my iPad, I do have a bit of a larger screen, so that's perfectly nice. I need to log in again. So this is the Microsoft Authenticator app that is being triggered in the background to make sure that I'm securely connected. So now this is my Aspects team. So I'm going to log in a few times because I have multiple accounts connected to this as well. So what I can do, as you can see on the top, I could take over this meeting and have it on the go with my iPad as well. So that's pretty cool. And I can start chatting with my colleagues here as well. So ideal experience for normal day-to-day work. I would prefer an iPad or a tablet on top of my iPhone or Android device. I can also look at my chats right here. Look at my activities, my calls. I have an overview of my recent calls and an overview of my recent files. So interface is pretty seamless as it was with my iPhone and Samsung Galaxy S9. However, I do have a larger screen, so it feels a little bit more practical to work with. So the ideal solution to enter a meeting or stuff like that. So that was Teams on my iOS device. I'm gonna grab my tablet. So this is the Samsung Galaxy Active Pro. It has been launched in DeX mode, as you can probably see around here. And I want to launch my Teams client. So it's actually launching in a window mode. That's due to the Samsung DeX mode. Samsung DeX offers the ability to have a desktop experience on your Android device or Samsung device. So I have the same user experience here as I used to have on my 3 previous devices. So I still have my activity tab, my chat as well. 123 was a chat with Kai, so I don't know why he's now flagging this as an unknown user. I also have my Aspects Sales Demo General channel. So pretty cool. Let's go back. I also have my calendar and calls. So as you probably have noticed, the user experience on 4 different devices hasn't changed much. It's only the size of the screen that has changed a little bit. So cool. Let me just close down my Teams and continue. So that was my iPhone tablet, my iPad tablet and my Samsung Active Pro tablet. Well, this is something I don't have right now in my room, but you can also use Microsoft Teams in common meeting room devices. You have on the left side of the screen, you have a Surface Hub, which is a pretty cool device to start working with and collaborating in meeting rooms. You can also have a look at Logitech or other vendors which provide Teams room systems, which you can plug into any video device or any TV which is hanging around in the room. You just need to plug it into your HDMI cable, put this somewhere on a desk or on a table, and you can get started with video calling and conferencing. So up to the notebooks, desktops, and hybrids section. So as you saw earlier, I already have an old iMac at hand, but no worries. It doesn't support any of the Office 365 apps right now, but we also have Microsoft Teams in a web client available. So let me just quickly introduce you to that web client version. So this is my old school iMac. I have a Firefox browser installed on this one, and I'm launching this towards the Office portal. So it's logging me in automatically. So as you can see, these are my Office online apps to which I have access to with my demo account. If I now browse to Teams, it connects me to the Teams web version. So now this is the actual user experience I would have if I was using the Teams FAT client. So the screen is a little bit wobbly, but as you can see, the user interface is almost the same as you would use your Teams FAT client that you are using today. So doesn't matter on which device you are working. My Teams is looking exactly or more than exactly the same as is with a fat client or a mobile client. So here as well, I'm showing you now my fat client. Works exactly the same as all of my other clients I'm working on. So great. Showed you an iMac version on my Surface Pro. I don't have a MacBook Pro, but the feeling is the same. So you can also install the Microsoft Teams Fat client on that one as well and get started with Microsoft Teams. So there's another one which is called our virtual desktops. Well, in order to show you our virtual desktop, I'm going to connect you to one of my sessions. But before we connect to our virtual desktop, we have a couple of prerequisites that we need to meet. So one of those prerequisites is actually Windows Virtual Desktop. So we're going to talk about Windows Anywhere, but matter of fact is Windows Anywhere is actually just Windows Virtual Desktop. So that's our desktop that roams everywhere we go. So Windows Virtual Desktop, what is that exactly? It's the best virtual desktop experience delivered on Azure. So what can we utilize from Azure? We can host our Windows 10 session hosts together with an Office 365 install. So that Office 365 comes with Microsoft Teams. And we can also use Windows Server versions, and it's all located in a Microsoft Azure data center. So from which device can we connect to those systems? We can connect from a smartphone, from a tablet, and from a notebook desktop hybrid device to it. It's the only Windows 10 multi-session experience that you can have, and that's the one with Windows Virtual Desktop. It automatically enables optimizations for Office 365 Pro Plus, and you can easily migrate your Windows Server, RDS desktops, and apps to Windows Virtual Desktop. Thanks to the power of Azure, it allows you to deploy and scale in minutes. Now, this is a bit of a high-level architecture. So the top part right here, you can see it's managed by Microsoft. So we are not managing any web access diagnostics, gateway management, brokerage, or load balancing anymore. That's all being covered by Microsoft. So what does this service use in order to authenticate? It uses Azure Active Directory Identity Management Service. So that's your primary point of entry in order to connect to your Windows Virtual Desktop. Now, as I stated earlier, this is all managed by Microsoft. So it provides a virtualization infrastructure as a managed service. So Microsoft is managing this and provides this as a managed service to our customers and to our CSPs, resellers, ISVs. So this is under our control. This is our subscription, so we can deploy and manage our VMs. Our Windows 7 Enterprise, our Windows 10 Enterprise, multi-sessions, Windows Server 2012 R2 and up, and our remote applications. And we can manage that with traditional tools like Configuration Manager or Microsoft Intune. And it's very easy to connect to on-premises resources. So the underlying hardware, which makes Windows Virtual Desktop available, is compute, storage, and networking provided by Microsoft. So before we get started with a Windows Virtual Desktop, we need a couple of prerequisites. So step one, we need to choose an identity strategy. So what is identity? And that's a username and password. So that's a security principle. So you, as a user, you are a security principle and you own an identity. That's someone you are as a person. That's an identity. So we need an identity strategy. So we have a couple of options there. We can use Azure AD Domain Services, and that's a domain service as a service. Then we have a VM with Active Directory configured as an option that we can use in your cloud environment. Or we can set up a hybrid connection to our on-premises data center, either via ExpressRoute or a VPN connection. So after we have our identity strategy in place and we know how to log on to our environment, The second step is to choose where do we host our profiles. So a user that logs onto a device has a profile. Your profile stores your desktop, your documents, your settings that you apply within your session. So we need to choose a way to store our profile somewhere, and that underlying technology is called FSLogix. So we've got three options there as well. So we can use a traditional file server, as you know them day to day. We can use Azure Files, which is the file server as a service version, or we can use Azure NetApp Files. If you're used to working with NetApp, then probably the Azure NetApp Files is the way to go for you. Now, step 3, make sure you have all credentials needed. So we do need a couple of credentials before we can get started. In the past, when you had to install some kind of software on a server, you needed to create a service account as well. So now we need those service accounts as well. So what do we need with regards to credentials? We need a subscription admin who has full owner permissions on our subscription. We need an Azure AD global admin to create new user accounts and add users to security groups and resource groups. And we need an Active Directory administrator. So we need a Windows Server traditional Active Directory administrator. And also a WVD, so a Windows Virtual Desktop Tenant administrator. So these are a couple of prerequisites before we can even deploy a Windows Virtual Desktop. Now, once we've met those prerequisites, how do we deploy a Windows Virtual Desktop? So the first step is we need to create a new host pool. And a host pool is a combination of hosts. So the second step will be that we add an existing VM or a new VM to that host pool. That VM, you can publish that as a full desktop to a user, or you can publish the apps that are in that desktop to a specific user. Step 5 is to connect via the HTML5 client or the physical RD client to your desktop. Now, this all sounds like a lot of fuss. So we as Aspects, we created a product around that, which is called Flowdesk, which I'm briefly gonna demo to you. So all of the previous prerequisite steps, we've bundled them all together in a very user-friendly interface, which makes life a lot easier for you. So I'm going to our development environment with regards to Flowdesk. So I'm already logged into my Flowdesk application. So I want to create a new Wvd tenant. So if I click new, I have the option to create a new tenant or an existing tenant. Our deployment contains the Windows 10 E3 licenses. We deploy the Microsoft Azure Virtual Data Center concept. It's a set of configurations that are required in order to facilitate Windows Virtual Desktop. So a couple of the prerequisites that we just mentioned, and a managed Windows Virtual Desktop. I can choose between different workload types. So I am just a simple task worker, and I just want to create an environment for myself. I want to enter 10 users. So I want to create a new tenant. I live in Belgium, virtual company name, VirtComp 0303. See if that's still available. Yeah. Virtual address, a zip code, city, virtual state. So next, my first name, Yannick. Let's add aspects to demo.microsoft.com and a phone number as well. So first, I want my alerts as well, so I'm just going to use that same address, and I want my hosts to be in English. So I want to create a new user, and this is my demo user. So if I click next, all of the prerequisites that we just mentioned are being automatically converted into Azure automation that we've built in the background, and within 2 to 4 hours we have an environment fully up and running. So That's as easy as that. So we don't need to enter any specific PowerShell commands. I need to think our identity strategy. We already did the thinking for you. And based on our best practices in the field, we've made a concept and a high-level design of how a Windows Virtual Desktop environment should look like. And that's what we're deploying now in the background. In the background, my virtual company 0303.microsoft.com is now created. So as this session only takes up to an hour, we're not going to wait for 4 hours, of course, in order to continue. So this was how easy it is to deploy a Windows Virtual Desktop environment with Flowdesk. So let's continue with now. Again, we have our Windows Virtual Desktop environment deploying in the background. I already have a demo environment right in front of me. So how do we get Teams enabled on that Windows Virtual Desktop environment? You would say that with a default Office 365 install, it's included, but that's not always the case. So many IT organizations still need to manually install or push the install of Microsoft Teams onto that Windows Virtual Desktop. So let me briefly show you what you need to do in order to get Teams up and running on that Windows Virtual Desktop. So again, we have a couple of prerequisites. First off, in our previous section, we had to create a host pool and then add a host to that host pool. But by default, it doesn't have any audio and video redirection enabled on it. So if you would log on to your virtual desktop, your audio and video won't work. So that's the first step. We need to enable audio and video redirection. As the second step, we need to make sure that we have a couple of registry keys in place to make sure that our Teams installer knows that we're installing it on a virtual environment. By default, the Teams installer will just install it in your own profile as a user, but we want to make it available to all users that log on to that virtual desktop. And that's why we need to modify a couple of registry keys in order to have our Teams installer be installed as a per machine mode. So our step 3 is to do that install on a per machine node for Microsoft Teams. Step 4, after we've installed Teams on our desktop, if we then again launch our desktop, our AV redirection won't be enabled yet. So what we first need to do is refresh our connection details. And after we've refreshed our connection details, we can get connected. So again, a hands-on demo. So I'm launching my Aspects sales demo on Microsoft My Session Desktop. I'm going to show you that I don't have any Teams installed right now. So now I'm logging into my virtual desktop, which is being hosted on Azure. And as you can see, no virtual desktop here. So no Microsoft Teams in my start menu. So I'm nicely gonna log out. So I want to make sure that we have our Microsoft Teams installed into our session. So it's gonna wait for the logout process. Great. So I'm gonna log on to my management server. So I already made a connection to my management server. And I'm gonna log into my WVD1 host where I want to install Microsoft Teams on. So this is my Windows Virtual Desktop host, which I'm currently connected to. And what we can do now, I have created a small script, future PowerShell module that's going to be introduced, which does the Teams on WVD install for you. I'm going to open this in PowerShell IZ. And what it basically does, it sets our registry keys, it downloads the Teams MSI package, and it starts installing that with the right set of commandlets that are required. So I have two functions running in this PowerShell script. So I'm just going to first run them and make sure they are available. Now I can do an install Teams 64-bit. So what it does, it will create a new registry key. It will add those registry keys to the registry. It will download the MSI installer from Microsoft Teams in the background, and it will launch the installation process for me. As you can see, Microsoft Teams has been installed successfully now on my Windows virtual desktop. I just need to wait for my installer to complete. And that's great. I'm closing my PowerShell session. And my Microsoft Teams is now available on my template host. I'm nicely gonna log off or disconnect this session. If I now reconnect to my session desktop, so one of the prerequisites was so we installed Teams. Now we need to refresh our connection details. So the refresh, you can do that here. If you click a refresh, it will automatically refresh the latest settings that we pushed as well. If you have forgotten to enable the AV redirection, it won't work. So another module that we created as aspects is our Wvd Management Module. So I want to manage my aspect sales demo environment. So I'm launching this PowerShell session, and as you can see, I have option 88 here, which is set to enable audio and video redirection. So I'm first gonna enable this. And yes, I'm pretty sure that I want to do that. I want to publish this to my default host pool. So as you can see, I only have my default host pool available as my desktop. So let's select my default host pool. And in the background, it's now enabling my AV redirection. As I've used this for demo purposes in the past, my previous RDP property was already enabled. So if I run the command again, it will just simply update it with my latest commands. So now I'm sure that I've enabled audio mode, audio capture mode, camera store direct, and device store redirect. So this means that it will redirect my camera and microphone. Enter and exit. There we go. So I'm just going to make sure that we refresh another time, and now I can launch my session desktop again. And as you can see, I'm logged on as Yannick Dils, and I now have my Microsoft Teams client here, which I can open up. And great, same experience as with all of my previous devices, as with the web client, as with my local client. I have my Teams installed here, and I can now start a call with Kai, for example. So let's try to do this. Not sure if we're gonna get kicked out of this session, but let's just briefly start. As you can see, Kai is not reachable, but my audio was working, my video was working as well. Kai is probably also in this session, that's why he couldn't be reached. So, but this should be working just nicely. So maybe just gonna try to call me here. Micha is not answering as well, so unfortunately, I think we have to end the demo here as well. Okay, so great. So you saw that my audio and video was being redirected here. So I have this screen open. I will brief. Here is Kai. Hi, Kai. Welcome to the demo. Here you are. Great. So now we're using Microsoft Teams with audio and video calling within our remote desktop session. So thanks a lot for joining the demo. So this was our demo session with regards to Microsoft Teams. So my session is still open. So pretty cool thing with Windows Virtual Desktop is we can have that same experience also on our other devices. So I'm still logged in. I will reopen my Microsoft Teams client. It does require me, oh, that's opened on our management server. So I need to make sure that I'm connecting to the right one. So this was my Teams. I'm just gonna minimize this one. And get you back to my video. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna hover my session over to my tablet. So I hope you can all see my screen pretty nice. I have this nice keyboard provided by Zach, which is foldable, pretty cool, easy to go with, and I'm just gonna launch my RD client, so my session desktop on my tablet. So it's now connecting me on my tablet. I get a message that I'm being disconnected from my desktop, and now I have my Windows Virtual Desktop session running on my Galaxy Tab Pro. Pretty cool. Now, if I would want to continue on my phone with my desktop or have it on the go, because I need to plug in somewhere else, in the background you can still see my active session. So I'm connecting this to my Galaxy, and I have that same virtual desktop on my PC. So same with the Microsoft Teams client, I also have the same user experience and same interface on all of my devices. So just to show you, I'm gonna grab my iPad. I just want to make sure that you all know how easy it is to work with Windows Virtual Desktop. So I do need to enter my credentials again. Yeah, I'm just gonna enter my password in a more secure location. As you can see on my background, my Android device is still up and running and has my connection established. Now logging on my iPad, and I have that same experience. So just want to make sure that you see that it's now on my iPad and I have that same user experience where I can click through my Teams channels and have a go with my actual Windows experience. Now, I want to end this session with connecting to my iPhone. So we did a nice round robin. So I'm launching my RD client here as well, in my session desktop. It will again ask me for my credentials. like that. Enter the password. Okay, great. It's configuring my remote PC. And here I have my desktop at hand. And I can start clicking around, launch my Outlook. Pretty cool. And as you can see, it changed my screen size quite seamlessly. So it's pretty nice because I have a lot of different screen resolutions. So we started at my Surface device, connected to a Android tablet, an Android phone, an iPad, and now it's on my iPhone, and I can browse my Outlook client. So one last bit left to do. My old school Mac. So running since 2008. So don't have the ability to install the latest Office apps or the latest remote desktop client. But what we can do is simply browse to the web client. Here we go, it's loading the page. Still loading, it's a little bit slower, so give it some time. So as you can see, I have my desktop right there. I'm gonna click it. It will ask me to allow my clipboard and to redirect my printer. If all goes well, it again asks me for my credentials. So I'm briefly going to enter my credentials here as well. Like that. I'm just going to grab my keyboard. A small typo. And here we go. Same desktop, same virtual desktop on my old school iMac. So I think this concludes our demo. I've shown you that Microsoft Teams works on any device, at any location, at any user interface, and that Windows Virtual Desktop with Microsoft Teams enabled nicely roams across all of your devices. So I've shown you all of the prerequisites that we need to meet in order to get Microsoft Teams up and running on our Windows Virtual Desktop. So as Aspects, we can get you up and running in close to 24 hours, a complete Windows Virtual Desktop with Microsoft Teams enabled. So if you are ready for a new way of working, we can bring that to you in combination with a lot of our Samsung partner solutions. So if you have any questions or remarks, please feel free to ask them in the chat window. And this concludes our session for today. Thank you a lot for attending.
Well, that was pretty cool and pretty impressive. Thank you for having shown us the possibilities of the virtual desktop on different devices and how Team integrates with this wonderful array of possibilities. So thank you for that.